We were talking in the break, and Jason used the term sexy to describe the first-round selection in this year's NFL Draft, which, of course, was hosted in Green Bay. Outgoing President and CEO Mark Murphy making the selection for the Packers, or announcing the selection, rather, for the Packers of wide receiver.
Maybe he made it, too. I don't know.
He might have. That was the rumor, at least. Wide receiver Matthew Golden from Texas. For the first time since 2003, the Packers spend a first-round pick on a wide receiver. They followed that up the following day with a third-round selection of Savion Williams, another wide receiver. Romeo Doubs entering a contract year, his fourth year. Christian Watson tore his ACL at the end of last season, so we aren't sure when we will see him, despite some positive videos making the rounds on social media that makes him look very quick and healthy. Jayden Reed, another season of leading the Packers in receiving yards, but not really going over the hump. A couple of disappearing acts for him. Dontavian Wicks still looks good, just struggled with drops last year.
Same number of receptions as he had as a rookie, so he did not make the jump either. Although, unlike Jayden Reed in the second half of the season, he was more consistent and the drops were resolved. Not the case for Jayden Reed.
We still have yet to see a full-blown season of both young tight ends entering year three healthy together. Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave enter, at least at this point, this season both healthy, which is an encouraging sign. The state of the pass catchers is an interesting one because you've got a bunch of them. You've got high hopes for all of them. It just hasn't quite happened yet. You don't have that quote-unquote wide receiver one. Could this be the year? Jason, as you look at the pass catchers and evaluate where they are at, what do you make of them as we enter year three with Jordan Love as the starting quarterback?
Yeah, there's a lot of guys facing really pivotal seasons, right? I mean, not only, as you mentioned, Romeo Doubs, who, again, maybe I am just not very forgiving, or you've heard maybe I hold a grudge or two. And I don't hold any of them personally against Romeo Doubs, the guy.
Sure.
I think he's a different type of guy. So I don't hold a grudge against him for staying home from work and getting suspended the way he did. But I wonder if that is going to give them pause, combined with the concussions, about signing him to an extension, right? In my estimation, they have 9 guys right now on their roster at wide receiver who are worthy of an NFL roster spot, right? Assuming if and when Watson is healthy, it's Watson, it's Doubs, it's Reed, it's Wicks, it's Melton, it's Malik Heath, it is Savion Williams, it is Matthew Golden, and it is McCole Hardman. Like, I think he is an NFL wide receiver still. I know he's dealt with issues the last few years injury-wise, but they're not keeping 9. There's not a lot that I know for certain. They're not going to have 9 wide receivers on their roster to open the year.
What about 8 and you put the other guy at corner?
Yeah, I do think Bo Melton has a role on this team. Now, again, could that be my bias that I just like him as a dude? Maybe. I've been guilty of that before.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going through what they have with him if they don't.
So I guess
my point was simply that it's big for the 2 guys that are in contract years. It's big for 2 guys that will be eligible for extensions after this year that haven't really made the jump. They need those 2 to make a year 3 jump. And then, of course, it's big for the 2 rookies to get off to a strong start.
I wrote this to Jason when he put Matthew Golden as number 19 on his top 20 list over at channel3000.com, 20 most important Packers for this season. To me, Matthew Golden should have been higher on that list because he's the only one who can be a star of that group. They've got a lot of good guys, but they don't have a lot of guys that can be great. He's got the potential with the athleticism that he has, the production he had at the college level. And sometimes I think we fall in love with, like, this idea that, oh, man, look at all these guys they have. But they're just kind of guys. It's not true depth. When we talk about Bo Melton and Malik Heath, yeah, they've had moments, but it makes me think of, I don't know if you'll remember this name, I believe his name was Charles Johnson, who was a wide receiver on the back part of the Packers roster that, oh man, we can't cut him. He's going to be too good. He's going to be really good. And then they finally cut him. He goes to Minnesota for like a half of a season, and that was it. He was out of the league.
That would have gone Torrey Gurley there.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Okay.
Another one. He was a training camp star who caught 1 NFL pass for Cleveland in his career.
So that's the way I kind of feel about Bo Melton. Yes, he was the first one to have 100 yards a while ago, but If he was really that good, he'd be playing more. Same thing with same thing. With
I think he makes the team because of his special teams.
Correct.
Role.
Yes.
But again, that takes up a wide receiver spot.
Yes.
That might have gone to someone who is more likely to be productive in your. Now, here's the reason why I put Golden as low as I did, and primarily I wanted someone high profile early in the release of the list, and I wanted it to be a little controversial because I think you can make the argument very easily, as you did, of him being higher. I think I can argue against that, though. I think I can look at the track record of rookie wide receivers who became really good players. Now, again, they joined the team when there was a clear-cut number one, but the one time that someone went out and had 60 catches as a rookie was in 2023 when Jayden Reed did it. How good is Jayden Reed? Because how good Jayden Reed is, how good Dontavion Wicks is, and how soon they get Christian Watson back, I do think factors into the number of opportunities that they're going to give Matthew Golden from the jump versus, say, down the stretch of the season.
The coaching staff doesn't think Jayden Reed's. They think he's a good player. They don't think he's that good based on his playing time. And I dove into this. So, excuse me while I pull out my little notes here. Because I was
just pulled out a sheet of paper.
I did.
Where did that come from?
That's Gabe Neitzel's music.
I didn't want to bring my laptop, so I was kind of looking into this. So last year, Jayden Reed only played 63.2% of the snaps as a wide receiver, which out of context probably doesn't make a ton of, okay, what does that mean? So I looked at some of the other number 2 wide receivers in the division. Jameson Williams played 79.3% of his snaps. Romeo Doubs, 84. Jordan Addison, 81.8. Jayden Reed has never reached any of those numbers that those guys are averaging in a single game. He's never played 80% of the snaps in a single game. And his snaps continued to go down as we went last year. You brought up Dontavion Wicks, who overall played a less percent of their snaps than Jayden Reed did last year.
What was Reed's number again? I'm sorry.
So Reed last year, 63.2%, which was second on the team.
And if I'm not mistaken, they didn't utilize him a lot in 2 wide receiver sets.
Correct, because they only trust him out of the slot. So Wicks ended up playing more than Reed in 5 of the last 6 games last season. So part of Reed's production wasn't just the drops. It was also the coaching staff wasn't putting him on the field for an opportunity to make plays. So I'm not looking at Jayden Reed as someone who's going to suddenly be somebody they trust on the outside if they're going to utilize more 2 tight end sets. I don't think Jayden Reed is somebody that, they like, and they think he can be a gadget player, but the way they used him last year was almost exclusively out of the slot.
I think there's one other factor that we have to include in that, and that is he was beat up for most of the season, not as an excuse for his production, but of how they may use him differently. You look at Savion Williams, he's 6'2", he's 220 pounds or whatever he is. And Matt LaFleur admitted this, and this was one of the things that came up after the draft, and then we obviously had the Drew Rosenhaus affair, et cetera. But look, Jayden Reed, he's got return skills. He's got a lot of appealing qualities. Stop running him on jet sweeps and pop passes because sometimes they work and sometimes he gets absolutely obliterated by a tackler. And then he's walking around with a bad shoulder and a chest injury. Use him in a way that also protects him from being too nicked up to be productive. And I think Matt LaFleur has said that on the record that is something they need to do a better job of. So maybe he has the same snap numbers, but he's used differently, and maybe that allows him to be more productive.
And maybe he can be productive, but playing that many snaps, you can't be a star.
Yeah, you're viewing that as a huge concern.
You can't be and he led the Packers.
Which is why he got a new agent, because he's going to be playing somewhere else in 2 seasons.
I look at him as, the coaching staff's not going to put him on the field enough for him to be a huge difference maker. To only play that many snaps, he only played 70 or more % of the snaps in 5 games last year. That's it.
And were they, just out of curiosity, I'm curious if that was games they were losing.
I would have to go back and look.
It's not on his little sheet.
It's not on the little sheet.
I mean, I see notes about Lucas Van Ness on that sheet, so I don't think this is the only appearance this sheet of paper is making.
We've got this for a number of things.
It's like the Dead Sea Scrolls.
I looked aside.
Incredible.
Again, that was the number 2 receivers I was comparing him against to the other guys. Not even the number 1 guys.
So who played the most
teams.
snaps?
For the Packers at wide receiver?
Yeah.
Romeo Doubs, 77.1%.
A guy who we all kind of feel like is probably playing
entering his final
season in Green Bay.
Yeah.
But again, he didn't even get to that 80% threshold that most number 2 receivers in the division
Which tells you what?
That they
don't see any of these guys as a number 1.
Which
and that's why Matthew Golden is on their team.
So,
but how soon will he be that guy is the question.
That's what I was about to get to, because I do think Matt LaFleur is going to fall in love with him, because I think he's going to be able to utilize him in so many different capacities, whether that's in the slot, whether that's outside, etc. I think Golden is going to have the ability to prove he can be the number 1 for this team for many years to come, and I think it will likely be quick. That's my prediction. I believe Matthew Golden will see a lot of playing time fast.
I hope you're right, because he has physical tools that all these guys don't have, right? Like, they all have one thing that we all kind of like. Oh,
good
man,
point.
Dontavian
Really
Wicks
point.
can get open. Oh, yeah. Christian Watson's got speed. Really good catching.
Yeah.
Great hands for Romeo Doubs. You've got the shiftiness of Jayden Reed. And you want to combine all those into one receiver, and then you've got a good one.
Instead
Jerry
of Rice.
Yeah,
right. Then you've got Jerry Rice.
Instead of just trying to mix and match the different matchups that they have. And as the season went along,
good point.
They trust it. I think Wicks was playing more because they trust him blocking, and they want him out there. And the drops started to go away, which is why his snap count numbers started to go up. So I think for Matthew Golden, it's how quick can you learn the playbook, how fast can you be comfortable on the outside, because they're going to be running, I think, a lot of 2 tight end sets with Musgrave and with Kraft, because those are 2 guys they've shown they actually do trust. Musgrave when he's healthy, Kraft obviously with what he's been able to do the last season and a half.
Perfect transition, because I do want to shift gears over to the tight ends real quick, because Tucker Kraft is a guy that I think we all gush over, right, when we do our daily shows during the Packers season. That was a guy who really, really impressed last year. Can he get to a top 5, top 7 tight end in the league level this season is my big question when it comes to Tucker Kraft.
I think that's tough, because there's a lot of really good tight ends in the league, but I think he can take that next step and be one of the top production guys for the Packers, just based on the way that they've talked about him and wanting him to get more involved. And again, some of that is off the play action stuff. Some of that is him owning the middle part of the field. Chewy talks about this all the time, where in the play, I've got it memorized, Fox 2XY hook. Chewy knew that play was called, he's getting the football. That was a bread and butter play they ran back in the 90s. And when we watch stuff for all 20 Chewy's, like, I don't see any bread and butter plays. Like, I don't see something that they consistently go to, and yep, this is how we're getting this guy involved. And I think they're going to find those plays for Tucker Kraft this year.
I agree with everything Gabe said.
He's cooking this segment.
He is, and it's not all written down on his little sheet. I would also add this, though. The one thing I worry about with Tucker Kraft is kind of the same thing I worry about with Josh Jacobs. And look, those 2 guys are tone setters with their physicality. But when you are that physical, you do put yourself at risk. And my helicopter beat writer instincts start to take over, because I think Tucker Kraft is special. I think he's, I got a lot of grief. I made a number of comparisons last season. I think most of them held pretty well, right? Xavier McKinney had a Charles Woodson-esque effect.
Impact.
They don't play the same position. He didn't have a bunch of touchdowns. But that comp and the way he was credited with being the guy who got Jair to straighten up and fly right until he had the knee injury, okay? I made the comp between Evan Williams and Micah Hyde. And the first person to confirm that after I got grief from Tausch was Evan Williams, who said he used to watch film of him all the time and he patterned his game after him. And then on your show, I said Tucker Kraft is more like Chewy because he can do everything. And that is that is the type of tight end I want. I like Luke Musgrave. He's got more J-Mike to him, right?
In terms of what?
In terms of being able to run down the seam and get.
He's not going to block.
Yeah.
Also part of the equation.
Receiving tight end. Yeah.
Well, probably knows the plays better though. But the bottom line is that Tucker Kraft does everything, and he doesn't do anything at less than 110%, and that does concern me. That he played all 17 games last season, but he did it after tearing a pec. My expectation for him is he's not going to change the way he plays.
No.
So they have to protect him again from himself a little bit.
So to put a bow on the state of the pass catchers.
What are you, Tausch?
What?
To put a bow on it? That's his big line. He loves that line.
Got to put a bow on everything.
Got to put a bow on it.
Well, I'm attempting to put a bow on it. The state of the pass catchers.
That's a shot from me interrupting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
That's exactly what that was. Yes. To put a bow on the state of the pass catchers.
Also, something that Tausch has a problem with you.
Jason, would you agree that? Would you agree that the state of the pass catchers is a healthy state as we enter 2025?
It absolutely is. I'm not quite as down on how good these guys can become as Gabe might be based on his little scribblings. Because
Jayden Reed, yes.
Well, Jayden Reed, Dontavion Wicks, I'm going to go down with that ship. I'm still waiting. I think Robert Ferguson is really going to be a good player.
my former neighbor.
I was a big believer in him, too. It never really came together for him either. But my point is that I like these guys a little bit more. I would love to have seen what, say, two of them would have done had they just been the number one and number two like most teams have. But the Goody plan, I think in some ways is smart and in some ways stunts growth. Because you know how you get better at playing football?
Wait, I think I know this one.
I think you do too.
You play football.
Playing
Bingo.
Football. And you can't play them all at the same. You can't have 6 wides on the field at once.
No.
And so I'm eager to see what jump these guys make because I do believe in the Homer rule, and we have seen glimpses from all of them when they've been young players. And to Gabe's point earlier, they ain't young players anymore. You're in year 3, year 4. It's time to produce and produce in a big way. The growth is not linear. No longer really applies. You're still growing, but you got to produce.
If you're looking for a new contract, you're not a young player anymore.
Right.
That's a fact.
Right.
Gabe Neitzel, the final word on the state of pass catchers.
I think it's in a decent spot. I don't think it's as healthy as the quarterback and running back. And it comes down to how much are these guys going to grow? How quickly can Matthew Golden get up to speed? Can Luke Musgrave stay healthy? I understand a lot of that has been odd injuries, right? It's not like, he's got a hamstring, he's got a calf injury.
He's got a kidney.
He's got a lacerated kidney. What? You can do that? I didn't know. So I think
Pee in blood.
So I think it's a matter of, those guys staying healthy and then also actually taking that step forward that they were unable to do a year ago.